So I threw my car into park, which everybody, if you didn't know.
She puts her car in park, which automatically unlocks the doors.
I panicked. Well, I threw it in park so I could lock the doors. I didn't even know.
The doors were already locked.
I didn't know. Anyway, I was panicking. The guy starts punching out the windows of the car in front of me.
Yes.
And like glass shatters everywhere.
I feel like I'm rocking the army green.
Yeah, baby.
You know, you bought these shirts and I got a gray one, a green one, and I think a red one or a darker gray one.
And a blue one.
Oh, is there a blue one?
Yeah.
Okay. And I actually love these shirts. And I try to wear them as much as possible because they're a little bit flattering. They're more flattering. Like they're all their advertising is about like, hey guys, look good in a t-shirt, and I think they deliver.
Yes. Since we're giving unintentional promotion to this t-shirt brand, they're called True Classics. They're made for the dad bod.
They're made for the dad bod, and I'm definitely rocking the dad bod. Thank you. Like I'm not sure if that's a compliment or like.
No, they're a little bit flattering.
Yeah, they're tight in the chest, and then they kind of go down like a skirt. It's like a man skirt.
What?
Like a chest man skirt. Yeah. Goes around the midsection, gives you a little bit of space.
It's like an A-frame dress.
Like an A-frame dress.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But we're back. Hello, everybody. We actually did this podcast last week. And
yeah, so for all those listeners out there that were expecting to get it on Sunday.
Our entire audience. I mean, there's so many people that wanted to hear us. You know, and, I'm sure they're devastated.
You know, the good thing is that we actually did get people that reached out and said, hey,
where's the podcast? May or may not have been my parents, but people reached out.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. Always there to support you. No matter how old you get, you're still going to get a participation.
My mother's going to smack you for that one.
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about you.
Oh.
No matter how old you get, your parents are going to be there supporting you along the way. Yeah, your parents stay very young.
But yeah, no, we did this last week and the audio didn't come through. And so we're doing it again. And we've got new exciting things to talk about anyway, but we couldn't leave you guys hanging for a week. So
yeah, so we're going to do a first, which is basically we're basically going to record and then just release.
And release. Yeah. Well, it was so crazy last week.
We almost did a live.
I was ready. I was ready for live.
I was not ready.
Last week after we did the podcast, it's actually interesting. You know, everything happens for a reason. But we looked at each other and we literally said that was one of the weirdest podcasts. By the way, I'll tell everyone what happened. Before the podcast started, we said we are going to talk about these topics. And he was like, no, we're not going to talk about that topic. He's like, I could look into it a little bit more to be informed.
Like we needed to be more informed.
And so then there we are on the podcast and he brings it up live. And I was like looking at Maria, like, didn't we just say we weren't going over this? So I was so thrown because I was prepared not to have the conversation. Anyway, long story short, everything happens for a reason. The audio didn't come through. It was a very weird podcast. And on my way home from the office that day, shit went down on 301 and it was like nothing was
first of all, we live in Sarasota. It
must have been a full
moon. So this is we skew definitely demographically older, retirement. You know, this is
this city
God's
is,
waiting room. It is
my gosh, I can't believe
it is an area for people just to hang out and enjoy the sunshine and the life, and it is okay. And so when crazy things happen, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really crazy.
No, it was insane. So first of all, the only thing Chris knew is that I called him. I was driving home from work and I was sitting at a stoplight at a red light. And there was I was in the furthest lane to the right. Mm-hmm. And there's another lane that allows for people to turn right without waiting at the light. They yield to oncoming traffic. And so I'm sitting at this light and this car goes in the right-hand lane and stops, even though it's a moving lane.
Right next to you.
Right next to my car. And this guy comes out of the passenger side and he's really big and tall. And he was kind of running towards what felt like my car. And I was like, oh my God, does this guy need something? Like I was like so confused. So I threw my car into park, which everybody, if you didn't know.
She puts her car in park, which automatically unlocks the doors.
I panicked. Well, I threw it in park so I could lock the doors. I didn't even know.
The doors were already locked.
I didn't know. Anyway, I was panicking. The guy starts punching out the windows of the car in front of me.
Yes.
And like glass shatters everywhere. And then the car who's getting punched decides he needs to get the heck out of the way because he was probably pretty scared. And so the car starts driving through the cars in front of it.
Pushing them out of the way.
Bashing every car in front of it to get out of the way. So thank goodness
We're just thankful that you're the car behind.
I was behind, not in front. And then the man who punched out the windows got back in the car, and the driver like held a gun out the window as they drove away.
This is those moments where if we only had a dash cam, like we could just upload that on our channel and we'd have like 1 million views today.
Well, and I was so upset that I like didn't get the license plate or anything. I was just a car sitting unlocked in park panicking.
No, she wasn't panicking. So meanwhile, I'm back in a meeting and my phone rings and I'm like, whatever the button is, do not answer.
Yeah, he ignored
I'm
my
busy.
call.
And then it rings again, and then I ignored it, and then it rang for the third time, and I was like,
Note to
in my
self,
meeting,
you
I
have
was
to
just
call
like,
Chris 3 times.
I literally told him, I was like, hey, my wife's called 3 times. That's like code for like answer the effing phone. So I was like,
and I knew you were in
sorry.
a meeting, and I knew you were in a meeting, so it was obviously important.
It must have been an emergency. So basically, I did answer the phone.
I was like,
and you
hello,
walked me
someone
through
else's car got damaged.
And the funny thing is I go right back to my meeting. I'm like, yeah, my wife's getting carjacked, but everything's okay now.
It was insane.
She witnessed a carjacking.
It was insane. I've never seen anything like that before in my life, let alone it be here.
And you were pretty worked up and scared. And then, of course, you're
you
like,
told me to call the cops.
I did. I was like, people, they're going to look for witnesses to, call them and just be like, hey, I was there in case you need to know the truth.
And the lady was like, thanks. We've already gotten many
5
calls.
people already called.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Everyone calls when they see that type of thing. I mean, that's the responsible thing to do.
I've never seen that before in my life.
I've never seen that either.
Anyway, I was talking to my best friend and they were like, that guy driving that car must have hooked up with the other guy, like the other guy's girl.
Oh, triangle?
Sort of like, usually it's,
I just asked you that question
drugs,
last
sex,
night
or money.
because we like to watch, we like to have a little bit of trash TV in our lives.
You're a little bit, I'm a lot of it. I'm willing to admit it.
So I like to have a little bit in there. But I was just asking because what were we watching? This new show? I've never seen it before, but you were watching it.
Oh, Netflix has The Perfect Match. I've never seen it before.
Which is these people from other reality shows. And I recognize a few of them. You recognize most of them. And
most of them.
And I asked you, I was like, hey, does anyone ever get on a fight on the show?
Yeah. I'm sure it happens all the time.
And this one, and it's interesting because these people come from all walks of life. They're all like, what is the level of celebrity like how you have like A-list actors and then you have like D-list actors? Like where does
Yeah, but what's insane these days is some
where
of
do
the
they fall
most
into?
famous actors and actresses that like we've seen in movies our entire lives have, if you were looking at number of followers or ability to influence. They don't even compare
to some of these influencers.
Oh, well, or they do, but they're equivalent. If you look at them, it's like millions. It's crazy. But
that entire world's crazy. But
no
my
one
point
can
is
touch
that
Beyonce.
one woman, I can't remember what her name was, but she sat down. She's like, I like my man who's financially independent like me. Oh, remember that one?
Yeah.
And she sat down and it made me think like a lot of these individuals that are on these shows, how much they're getting paid
to be on the show.
I don't know if they're getting paid to be on the show, but it's just them being an influencer and talking about clothes or brands or
I know it was
whatever it is.
For those of you who watch Summer House, which I'm obsessed with, and I won't dive deep into it, but
I love Summer House.
Lindsay was very upset that
Kyle.
Oh, he does. He's obsessed with
love Kyle.
But anyway, Lindsay was very upset that Carl didn't have a job, but he was just like in a private conversation. He was like, I've already made 100. I think he was like, I've made like $100,000 this year off of social media, like influence opportunities or branding opportunities.
And she made 150.
And she's made 150. And so she's sitting here acting like I don't have a job. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they've made more than like the average in the first 3 months of the year.
They're making more than the average,
and
3 times the average salary.
She's like, I wish this guy would do something with
Filming,
his life.
I know. She's like, I wish this guy would do something.
He kind of seems
I'm
like
so
he
team
is.
Carl.
No, I'm not picking a side, not publicly anyway, right now.
All right,
I
she's
like
Team
both.
Lindsay.
Yeah,
Just so you know.
you know what? There were some questionable actions, but yes, a
Anyways.
girl's girl will always be a girl's girl.
You know, people are always, you know, they talk about products and hey, this product's good, this product's bad. But I typically, I like brand name stuff, but I typically, you know, I'll err on the side of saving some money. But we've recently run into something that's new where it is way expensiver, and I absolutely love it.
Expensiver? I can't believe that's not a word.
It's expensiver.
It's
more than expensive, expensiver. That's it.
more expensive.
And what it is, it's Sunbum, the sunscreen.
Oh my gosh, I know. Well, in general, so
We used to be.
what's so funny is, as everybody knows, if you've been listening, I did leave my corporate job, and so I'm, you know, pulling from savings, and I've been, whether I'm grocery shopping or buying things, like Sunbum is supposed to be a better sunscreen that we do actually prefer now that we've been using it, and it seems to work really well. And we live in Florida, so we use a lot of sunscreen in the summertime. But I mean, that's like one extreme where we're paying a lot more for sunscreen, which was a decision before I left my job. And all of a sudden I was like grocery shopping for Friends weekend and we were out of ketchup and I showed up at home with
Publix ketchup. Which, by the way, I love Publix.
Publix brand. Hey, you know what? We don't know yet. It could be Heinz, just white labeled.
The funny thing is I cared
sure.
so much and I don't even use ketchup.
I know. He was like,
I was like, we have to have Heinz.
he was like, how can you not buy Heinz? Yeah.
And she was like, well, it was half the price. And she's like,
It
I can't
was.
believe this. I'm looking at prices now.
Of everything in the store. And then we started having this conversation because I was like, I feel like such a jerk, but I really haven't been looking at prices for a very long time. And I almost
Well, no, then you basically.
I almost shed a tear in the grocery store thinking, is this my life now? But I think, which sounds so ridiculous.
Which is so ridiculous because she comes back and you literally came to me and you
I
were
was like,
talk
you
about
don't
prices.
know how much
She's like, you
things
don't know.
are.
And I'm like, ask me an item.
So I did start.
And I started just nailing.
knew.
I go, first of all, I look at prices
I was
because
like, Vital Farms butter.
I don't look at it and go, hey, this bag of chips is cheaper than this bag of chips or whatever, and be like, oh, that one's lower. I just like to compare the ounces and be like, it's this much per ounce or this much per
That's
whatever.
Crazy. So you know how much you're paying for
Yes,
the amount
I
of food?
drill all the way
my
down
gosh.
into the things
No.
because I'll sit there and be like, oh, we should get the you know, I know that the bigger bag doesn't look like much more, but actually on a cost per basis,
That's insane.
it's actually
And I'm
either
literally
more
like,
expensive or
I
less
can't believe
expensive.
we're even having this discussion. But we hosted our friends at the lake this weekend, and it was a very different friends weekend than we've had in the past. Normally it's an adults weekend.
Yeah, it
and
usually
everyone's
is.
gone and popped out babies.
Yeah,
And so
they were passing out water last summer, and we didn't drink the water. I think we were
passing
drinking
out.
something
Oh,
else.
you mean what's in the water?
What's
I was
in the
like,
water?
water at
Because
the
they
lake.
were all
no,
just.
thank you. We're having seltzers. But
you know,
no,
all
they all
kinds of
brought their
babies.
kids. It was so much fun. But so we hosted and we cooked a bunch of food. And I know we always talk about like hosting on a budget, but I was like, I'm going to buy some chicken drumsticks. There was like 20
And I was like,
drumsticks
no, I
for
want
$10.
chicken thighs. And then she's
And I was like,
no,
get
you're
over
getting
it.
chicken
He was like, I don't want a
drumsticks.
bone in a chicken. And I was like, dude, you're going to have to deal with it.
I'll tell you what.
They're good.
I don't know how to say this, but
What?
there's something about eating on a bone. Like, I mean, I do like ribs, but like eating chicken on a bone, for some reason, I just don't like it. Like, it just makes it. But I do love chicken wings now that I say that out loud.
Yeah.
I'm in a tough spot. I think if it's an oversized bone, I don't like it.
So you're not the turkey leg guy at the fair?
I look at turkey leg people. When I see turkey level people, I literally
Turkey level people?
Yes, I literally look at these people and I'm like, how in the world can you walk around with a piece of meat that big on a bone
And feel okay
walk
about
around
yourself?
and feel okay eating it in public?
I will admit, I've never had a turkey leg. Like
I will never. You will never see me eating a turkey leg because I will. No.
I feel like I need to get you drunk and buy you a turkey leg just for photo documentation.
It'll be like the great asparagus incident in the Keys a couple of years ago. So
That was
I'm
an
sure I'll be
incident.
funny with it.
Oh my
but,
gosh. But it was crazy. I mean, everyone's sitting there with these little kids, and they range. Seriously, we had a girlfriend who's got a 6-month. Well, friends. She's my girlfriend, and then the guy, her husband, is our friend too. But they've got a 6-month-old, 7-month-old, and there's a 1-year-old there. There's a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So they were all over the map. But everyone's
over.
kind of talking about. what they're doing to prepare for the future. It's crazy with kids. You have to start thinking about, I mean, a college education, maybe, if that's something that you want, but it's like it takes time to determine what the best route is.
And the more I've had an opportunity to think about this, it's kind of like, I mean, especially for a lot of people when they have their first kid, it's like, holy cow, this is new. Like, I have this thing, it's alive, and it's got fingers, and
my alien, it's
crawling
eating
all over you, and so it's like you want the best for it. But for some reason, my mind, because we just kind of got out of this season where everyone's kids were like graduating, like first grade or kindergarten.
Oh yeah, it was graduation
elementary
time,
school, and everything like that, and it just makes me think how much. One, it's really nice because people really just love their kids. And that's great. And then some people love their kids so much that they're going to save, $250,000 to send them to college, which blows my mind.
I know. Well,
it isn't.
It's funny you brought up the whole kindergarten graduation thing. I mean, it's very sweet. I would love to, see my nephews and everything graduate. We don't live close enough, so I didn't make it this year. But I heard on the radio the other day they were talking about it, and they were like, why would you go to your kid's graduation? And then this dad went, like one of the radio hosts went, and he was like, I actually got teary-eyed. It was like really sweet and emotional. Like I thought it was going to be bullshit, and it was amazing. And I'm like, that's what happens when you love your children. It's like anything for them. But it is, we have a very different opinion on whether or not you would save up for your kids to go to college. And I was very fortunate. My parents did pay for my tuition, but I know that you have a different opinion.
Well, one, college wasn't even really encouraged, or my parents were a nurse and ran a small business and owned a crane company and in the construction business, and so there wasn't a conversation on what to do.
And in the military,
and they were
a military family,
yeah. So every male in my family served in the military. So for me, it wasn't that I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to be an engineer. And in order to get to college and have it paid for, I actually went the ROTC route and got a scholarship to go to college to get that degree. And I think, mostly because of that is probably the influence I've had on my life. I look at, there's so many ways to get college paid for, whether it's working and going to community college and having it paid for, whether it's enlisting in the Army and getting the GI Bill and going afterwards, whether it's getting a scholarship from the military and going to college and then doing service afterwards, or then pure just academics. Like, in the state of Florida, if you just get good grades, you basically get a full ride to any state college.
If you apply to the program. So I think this is one of the biggest things. It's like when I was going to high school, I was well aware of like AP classes where you could take them in high school, take the exam, and then get those credits towards a college education. I think at the time, even when I was in high school, you don't realize how much a college course would cost for the one test that you need to take for that free education you got while I went to a public high school. We can talk about public and private in a second, but I've got friends who took those AP courses and were like, I didn't even take the test, or I did take the test and I just blew it because I didn't really care. And, didn't realize how much of a benefit it would have been. I went into college, I think, a semester ahead with some of the credits that I had, or at least I had.
Right. And that's just good planning, though,
right,
to reduce your costs. When I went in, I didn't, I took as many courses as I wanted because they were paid for.
Right.
And so when I hear people talk about, courses and paying for it, I actually have I don't understand that because I was on scholarship, so I just took as much as I wanted.
Yeah.
I carried an average course load of, I think, like 21 hours.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
And what's nuts, too, is 21 hours is a lot.
Yes.
But, I'm the same as my mom. My mom always said the more credit hours she had, the better she did because the busier she was. And so she was just always on it. And that was the same for me. Like sometimes I had credit hours that were very limited and other times I was super busy. And I typically
So was
did the
16
best.
hours, like that was like heavy
No,
course
16
load?
hours is average. I think a heavy course load for me was like 18 or 19.
The thing I love
21
about
a
her
lot.
is like, I actually pitched that as like a total, like a, like a little bit of a dig. And he just turned around with a smile and just like, oh yeah, no, it's great. It's amazing. And I'm like, crap.
16 hours is average.
I wanted you to be like, what? What are you telling me I just did 16 hours?
No, I did. That's average. It's normal for people that
Okay.
are listening. He's abnormal. He's out of the ordinary when it comes to averages. You certainly are never just an average guy.
I had nothing else to do but go to school.
True.
You know what's funny is that I went to military college, and so we were trapped in a barracks. And there's a couple funny things that happen in life. No, it's the institute, and the Army gave me a stipend, so they paid for college, and I got $150 a month. Was like my free money. I could do whatever I wanted with, and to this very day, my mom swears that she gave me the $150. She's like, Chris, don't say I never gave anything to you. I gave you $150 a month every month while you were in school. And I'm like, Mom, that wasn't you. That was Uncle Sam. Like, I don't know why you're taking credit for him.
Hey, Uncle Sam could be.
We don't know. And then she's like, oh, I always sent you pizza. And I'm like, Mom, you sent me 2 pizzas, okay? One my sophomore year and one my senior year. I know, because getting a pizza is such a magical moment. You can't forget it. So, like I know the 2 times that it happened.
I have these things documented.
I do.
That's
I really
hilarious.
do.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of things. I used to love getting boxes from home. In fact, my roommate, her aunt always made puppy chow, that like Chex Mix that has like peanut butter and like powdered sugar and stuff. And every year we would like wait for the puppy chow to arrive. It was amazing. But but no, you can take AP classes, and then we were talking about it. It's like if you do well in school, you can get scholarships. And I think, here in Florida, it's called Bright Futures. I wasn't aware of that. I think there's a lot of scholarships or programs that exist in all the different states that, unless you were informed they exist, I don't think there's any really great educational programs, or parents don't attend some of these sessions, where they are offering up the information of things you can get your children enrolled in, because our opinions were very different. Like, I think college should be paid for. You wouldn't necessarily do that. And parents can have a difference of opinions. But what's amazing is, because you didn't feel that it was necessary to pay for, Bree to go through school, you were like, I'm going to push her to do everything she can to afford, this college experience or get the scholarships that she's capable of getting.
Absolutely.
And she did.
Well, that's the thing is that just because you're not going to contribute financially doesn't mean that you're not there to help them earn their way through.
Right.
And there's a huge amount of gratification of earning your way through and doing it. And, I'm not here to say that one side's right and one side's wrong. People do different experiences. You got to figure out what's great with your kids. The reality is that I ended up helping Bree financially in college, even though I told her I'm not going to give you any money. And I always looked at it as like, you're going to end up paying this money back, because this is a loan to you. Even though it came from me, it's not a gift. She chose to go to private school, and where she had a free ride to public school. And so I helped kind of bridge the gap there. And the best part was that when she went from private, then she decided that public school was actually a better fit for her, and tuition was paid for. All of a sudden we had all this extra money. So
yes, I know.
It's nice.
It is crazy though. It's like, there's always that discussion too, she had a full ride to a public school, and she really wanted to go to private school, and she had worked so hard. It was like, well, I'm paying a portion of what I would have paid if you had none of these scholarships. So like, you're willing to help, or if you're capable, right? Or if she needed to take out a loan, it would have been much less, but she was really passionate about going to that particular school, in the beginning. And then she found where she really belonged.
Right.
And she's enjoying it. But sometimes kids can get like a full ride to a certain university and choose to go somewhere else. And as a parent, then that's a decision that you need to make of whether or not you're going to help support them at a different location that maybe they didn't have the funding available.
Yeah, I think there's only one route that I would probably say personally that I'm not a huge fan of, and I would probably secretly judge, and that is like people who believe their kids are going to get...
It's not secret if you're saying it right now.
Yeah, well, it's because I'm not going to say anybody specifically. So it's like people who believe that their kids are going to be like a sports scholarship. Like, I think that's really hard to get and really do. And I think this tendency to just believe in your kids and they can do anything and everything. And I'm reminded of Tyler, when he went to high school, I was like, hey, we're planning for college. You need to play a sport. You need to be well-rounded. And he's like, I'm going to play basketball. And I'm like, dude, you ain't not playing basketball. You have short, stocky, fat legs, and you need. No, I'm Mrs. Loving. I'm being 100% loving.
Does not sound
and just
loving.
saying, hey, this is not, because that's what a parent is to do, is to bring that reality to them and say, hey, I didn't say it in a mean voice or raise my hands or my voice. I said, hey, this is not going to be for you.
Sometimes it's like, if you want to do it, try. See?
Yeah, but you see, you get to a point where try goes away. These kids are too good. So, and he ended up going for wrestling, and we walked in to watch the wrestling meet, and we're walking through the basketball area, and these kids are running and spinning and dunking and, and dribbling. And he looked right at me and he said, there's no way I would have made this team. And I said, absolutely, because it's my job as a parent to like bang in a little bit of reality to people who just don't know. And so they're thinking.
And sometimes there are people who they recognize like there's a massive skill, and you would be silly not to pour into that, because what if they could be look at all the professional athletes that do exist. And while it is something that's maybe far-fetched or doesn't happen to everybody, it'd be really awful if like they were so good at something and you didn't pour into them.
Yeah, but there's a couple million kids graduating.
Yeah.
Excuse me. A couple million kids graduating each year, and there's 300 professional basketball players, And so I think it's just this reality, whether it's academic. That's the other thing, is like this urge to go to college. It's
you don't
like,
have to go to college.
You don't need to go to college. Like, there are plumbers and electricians and HVAC and other home service industries where they're minting multimillionaires because they're providing a trade.
I will say it's so interesting.
Went to a course.
I used to think that like some of these more blue collar jobs were, growing up, I suppose I had the wrong perception that maybe they weren't making as much. But sorry, we have a little technical difficulty. Okay, we're back up and running. No, but maybe a blue collar job wouldn't be making as much. But now it's like a lot of these people who are doing the work, they're actually the small business owner themselves. They've learned a trade. They don't have any loans from school. And that's the thing too. It's like really hard as a parent to determine, how should I be saving for my kid, not knowing if they're going to end up wanting to play sports, if they're going to go to a trade school, if they're even going to want to go to college. So like programs like the 529 program, once you put money into that, can you get it out? How can you, I know you can transfer from one kid to another, but what are your thoughts on programs like the 529?
I think it's great. I think if someone's going to participate or try to send their child to college and they want to save and they're buying tuition today, I think that's all great. Because at the end of the day, you're creating options.
Well, and I think you pay today's rate. Isn't that what it is? It's kind of like, if you're going to sign up for this program, you can put so much money in over the course of time, and it helps you be prepared to pay for that when the time actually comes for them to go to school, but you're not paying the rate that would be, with inflationary rates today, who knows if that's actually a benefit or not.
I don't even know if people are going to go to college
in years from now.
10, 15 years from now. I mean, I saw this video, I actually sent it with you the other day, and it was talking about this guy, and he's like, we send our kids off too often instead of sending your kids into your home business or what you're working on and teaching them a craft and getting them out there and doing all these items. So my thought is that, you pour into these kids any and every way that you possibly can. But, with college, like if you're going to be an engineer, if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be an accountant, like there are things that you need to go to college for. And with technology the way it is and people's ability to learn remotely, the ability for AI to start teaching kids and like learning how the kid learns and teach them, I'm very leery on what the value. There's a huge growth aspect of college, which I think is a little bit more valuable than the actual schooling itself. You get schooled in all these things and well-rounded. I did not enjoy history in high school or college at all. Like, because it was a memorization drill. Yeah, there was no enjoyment about it. It was like, hey, you're going to listen to Archimedes and this, blah, 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 and then regurgitate it. But there was no enjoyment of it. And now, I love history.
Well, and it's crazy. I'm the same exact way. It's like that was not of interest to me at all. But I have traveled the world quite a bit. And standing in the Colosseum, for instance, you like have to know every detail. Like, what happened here? How, where did they get to this point? Who came? Who was fighting? The animals. Like, I mean, it was just like every aspect of it because you're living it. Or now that, we've grown up a little bit as an adult, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, like what was going on economically in the world? What was going on, across countries in the world that caused this war? Like, you do want to make sure everyone's like, you learn so history doesn't repeat itself. It's like, well, I mean, history oftentimes does repeat itself or similar.
Yeah, but you're just too young to care.
Or understand how the world
until you actually
possibly
start
work
working
like
and
that.
have responsibilities, then everything kind of changes, in your life.
Yeah.
And for me, it's almost like this renaissance that happens as you get older, where you actually appreciate, a little bit of backstory, a little bit of history, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So,
but I will say, I did do a lot of traveling when I was younger, and part of it was influenced by my ability to study abroad while I was in college, because I think. I can't remember if you took out a loan or you had to do something. So that's what I was actually going to talk about. So my parents did pay for my tuition for the public school that I went to. I went to Michigan State. And it was Michigan State's an expensive school to go to, not as much as, a private school or anything like that. But all colleges are super expensive. And I was incredibly fortunate. I had friends that took out loans to go through all 4 years of school. But I did have a decision to make when I studied abroad for a semester. It was like, okay, this is going to be more than what a typical semester would be. So if you're choosing to do this, you'll pay in addition to. And I was like, okay, absolutely. I want the experience. And to your point, I mean, of course, having some of the courses and the academia is very important in college. And I would say too, we were talking about like high school and preparation. Some of the students who are more advanced in like the maths and the sciences, they get rid of what?
Oh, nothing.
That was you?
I was saying present.
That was me too.
Yeah.
I know. But I wasn't going to boast myself, but since you chose to, then it felt like a competition.
It's always a competition.
But no, you can get yourself into a position where once you go into college, you've kind of taken a lot of those prerequisites, and you can actually spend more time in college learning about things that you're actually really interested in. That would be more beneficial towards your future. But I do think it's more of like living on your own, which you can do in or out of college. You can do going to trade school. You can, you can do working a job, but it's like just learning how to pay your bills and live your life and the importance of money and balancing it. And so I did take out a loan, but what's crazy is there are so many funding options available for kids of that age as they're just getting into the world to learn about the value of money, that I have people whose parents paid for their tuition, but they actually took out a loan just to have extra money to join classes they might not have necessarily needed, or buy groceries, or go to the bar.
Right,
or
used it to fund their lifestyle versus working.
And didn't realize how detrimental that could be later if they didn't understand the importance of paying it back quickly.
Well, and that's, one of those things where, when I hear about, kids staying home and going to community college, and it does put a little bit of extra, I think as parents, and some parents would love their kids to say, some, parents are like, yeah, I can't wait to be empty nesters. But it's like, it's just an extension of that person living at home, but you're saving so much money in room and board.
Well, and let's
classes.
keep in mind, the current state of the world is very different than it was. And we were talking about that earlier, where it's like, depending on where you're at in life. So like when me and my sister graduated, especially my sister, it was 2008. And it was like, holy cow, there are no jobs available.
Yeah.
You spent all this money, you went to college, and like there are no jobs.
It's like the lost generation.
Yes, it's
like
so
that
crazy.
Generation that...
Well, she chose to go to medical school and took out even more loans because she was in a position where it was like, well, I'm not going to get a job right now, so I'll continue my education. So when the world is ready for me, I'm ready for the world.
She has a degree.
And she's done great, but right now, there are more people living under one roof, multi-generational people living under one roof in a family than we've seen since the Great Depression.
Really?
Like, yes. It's absolutely insane how expensive it is. Like these people who are coming out of college, like, rent is impossible, depending on the area that you're living in. Interest rates are high. The price of homes is high. So while we can sit there and go, it's crazy for people to go to community college, like right now, that might be the only option.
It's probably
for
the best
families.
option. I mean, when it comes to spending money.
Depending on what's going on economically in the world, I think it changes what the best option is for kids going to college. And it's impossible to anticipate what that looks like 20 years from now when you have a child, you know.
Right. And I think that comes back to our original question that what's been posed to us and what we're seeing our friends and people talk about, which is like, hey, what do I do for my kids' college? And it's like this thing, and it's like, it's 18 years away. And in one hand, you can sit there and go, it's 18 years away. Like, why don't you just kind of enjoy the moment right now? But, you know, there's the whole compounding interest and compounding of time.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, very appreciative to say like, hey, let's put together a plan. It'll be really interesting, you know, to see, you know, how colleges change over the next 10 years.
Over the course of time, yeah. And my family, like I said, I was very fortunate. They did pay for it, but they started savings accounts for me and my sister when we were very young. Like when we were...
How young do you think?
We'd have to ask, but I'm going to say babies. Like, I honestly do believe that, like, they had children and they were like, okay, this is like the account that we're going to set aside. So they didn't do a program because to that point, like, you don't know if they're going to go to college, you know, but whether it was for a wedding, whether it was for college, it was like, these are expenses that we'd like to provide for our children. And we're going to start saving today.
Yeah.
And we had allowances that we had to work for. So we did chores around the house and that was our responsibility. And we got some in cash. But some went into these savings accounts that we couldn't touch, that we knew it was like, well, we're doing the work today to build up towards that future.
Right.
And they put money aside too.
And that's all they get. It's like, hey, this is what I've saved up for you. And this is what you have to go to school. And
right. Of what was
everything
possible
else
over the
thing.
course of time. Yeah.
I think the key is just that at whatever age or whatever you start is like, you know, you're having, you know, you're using a purpose-driven account. That account is my kid's college fund. Hopefully it's not a savings fund. Hopefully it's either a program or something that can actually give away some returns, but also is very safe because you don't want to be taking a lot of risk. Unless you want to do that when they're younger and do it in some type of high growth anything. But you're going to want to budget for it, right? I wonder how many people actually, based off of their age, kind of think of their 401k or their savings account and say, you know what, I'll just take my personal money. We'll see what happens when the time comes. But, you know, is there a good separation between I'm setting this money aside, it is for my kids, versus, hey, we're just going to save money. And when they go to college, depending on how much money we have saved,
or they don't go to college, or they need help buying a house, or they, exactly.
Because that's probably, you know, I think knowing what I know now, if I did not go to school for engineering, I probably, you know, and I minored in computer science, so I probably just would have been a coder and actually never finished school at all if I wasn't on scholarship, right?
Yeah.
So if I did not have an obligation for my scholarship, I probably just would have moved to California and surfed.
Silicon Valley, and surfed.
Yeah.
I think it's important to save what you can, knowing that you want to be able to give, you know, your children the world, whatever that may be for them. And to encourage them, if education is their path, to try to get invested in as many scholarships as possible. But like we said, sometimes things are completely out of your control, you know, whether it's the economics of the world at the time, and, you know, what education even looks like in the United States. But it's crazy because, like, even right now, the Department of Labor, I don't know if you saw, they just changed the minimum salary. So like, you think about it too. It's like you pay a certain amount of money, even if you took out loans. The anticipation was, are you going to school for something that when you graduate, you could make enough money to pay back those loans? Like, was it worth it? It's essentially like the rule of life, return on investment. Like, are you going to be able to get back the investment that you made? College is an investment. You're investing in yourself. Are you going to be able to work that job? You know, in marketing all the time, it's like, I'm going to pay $10 for this ad, and if I get $9 back, probably not worth doing it again, right? So
exactly.
That's the same way I see it. And salaries have a lot to do with that for certain roles and positions as you're sitting there in college and you're determining, what am I going to spend my time on here? Which it's funny because for everyone who knows me, I got a degree in marine biology and spent my life in marketing. But so this
she came to Sarasota to save the turtles.
I was really just infatuated with the oceans, which is why I studied abroad in the Galapagos, and I don't regret it at all. It was the most incredible experience of my life. But the Department of Labor actually, right now, it's $35,000 is the minimum salary you can pay or exempt employee, which means they're just not hourly. And then as of July 1st, this year, July 1st, they're going to bring it up to $45,000 I think. No, maybe it's 43. But either way, in January of next year, it's going up to 58. It's 58,868, I think is the number.
Right.
Don't quote me on that, but it's definitely 58 and some change.
And then you have to make a choice. You either have to bring people up to that salary, or they have to convert over to hourly employees.
But they have to be able to fulfill the role that an hourly employee would entail. So if they're like managing other people, you can't do that. But it's going to make some big changes for small business owners and or even big business owners, to be honest. I mean,
Probably
it depends on the number of employees you have.
First.
That's a $20,000 difference in the course of 12 months due to inflation. And so it's like, and a lot of these companies have been going through some tough times. And so while you would hope that based on cost of living, people have gotten these increases incrementally over the course of time, I think the reality is not everybody's been able to do that to meet the cost of living changes that have actually been happening in today's world. So
yeah. And when you have those changes, that's a great time to then redo your budgets and do things like, hey, we have not been saving for college or this or that. And then you get a bump and it's like, hey, let's go ahead and take this money and put it aside and do something with it. So,
but for those who do, I mean, we sit here and it's like you put your kid through college, maybe they become like the best doctor in the world.
I feel like
maybe they're the best sales rep in the world. Maybe they are like a professional athlete. And usually those professional athletes, they get their first $1 million paycheck and it's like, what are you going to do? And they're like, I'm going to buy my mom's a house. It's like, I'm ready. Like, buy me a house, you know. Talk about your return on investment. Your child was your investment.
Well, we just watched that movie King Richard, which was Serena and
Venus Williams.
Williams.
King Richard.
And you know, he was such a big proponent in that. And I'll tell you what, like if you look at that movie, and I'm not sure, I hear it's fairly accurate, but like they were about raising their kids and like.
They were both athletes themselves.
They had athletes,
but that's,
educators.
Talk
I mean,
about
they had
pouring in. Practice makes perfect. Holy
kids.
cow!
So
like, that's amazing.
That is whole.
I think it's just when you put your mind to something, anything is possible. And I think that's just the biggest thing is to not only believe in your children and let them, you know, try different things, but also to have a really great understanding of the programs that are out there and what you can do to pour into them.
Yeah.
To have a good life.
Well, and that's the thing is just like kind of circling back and maybe closing off this whole financial college thing is like everyone's looking for that silver bullet right when their child's really young, and I think
it's impossible to know.
It just seems to just take a step back, and it's okay to plan and start putting something together, but I don't know if you're gonna basically come up with a solution when they're 1 year old.
Yeah, no. And the other thing is the nannies and daycare and childcare is so expensive right now. People are probably like, forget college. I'm just worried about how I'm going to pay for this thing to be alive every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great way to think. I'm going to pay for this thing to be alive.
Oh my gosh. Well, this was a good redo. It'll go live today, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Yes.
Talk to you soon. We got to get on.